All right, Red, White, and Ruthless. Here we are for I think we're at number 24, man. I think we're at number 24. Hope y'all watched the last one or listened to it with Mr. Burkhart talking about some issues he had with CDCR. This is just or that particular instance was just one of the many stories out there about how CDCR has done their own staff. They don't do the right thing, and they protect each other at the highest levels, and it's just wrong. And I like to expose some of that stuff. So if you have your own story, feel free to reach out. I will leave my email on my Facebook page, and it'll be all over the place. Also, just message me on the Facebook page as well. Obviously, it'll all be confidential. I ain't saying shit. And I would caution you to be aware, because these people are taking personal cell phones and going through them without a warrant. They're doing shit that, it's my understanding, they're doing this kind of crazy shit, and I don't know how they get away with it. I don't know how they haven't been sued so far. Maybe they will be, but I know they've done some whistleblowers wrong in the past, and Mr. Burkhart is unfortunately just one more to that list. So let's move on. Today we're going to talk about some statistics, because when you get hired to do a job, let's say as the Secretary of Corrections, okay, and I've said before, Mr. Macomber, Jeff Macomber, I don't know him personally. I probably have met him. But I don't recall if I have or not. But I do know people that have worked with him, and they have spoke highly of him, and I'm not gonna lie about that. But he's in a new job now, and he has been for a while. So it's his job to perform. So whether he's a good dude or not a good dude or whatever, we all get judged by the job that we do. And so that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to talk about the job that Macomber has done over the past few years. So what one thing we do know is, let's talk about prison population. So when I started in corrections, around 1993, the prison population was around 180,000, close to 190 at times. We were literally overflowing with inmates, triple bunked. We were bunking inmates in the gym, and just all over the place. That continued, I guess, significant population caused us to house inmates in other states with private companies. And I did have the opportunity to work in that unit that did that. That was one of the best jobs I've ever had, to be quite honest with you. I met some good people there too. But yeah, so housing, we were definitely overpopulated. There's no doubt about that. And if y'all are familiar with corrections, that's when we got sued and the federal courts came in and they did some shit that I don't even understand how they were able to do it. Basically, just back the money truck up and start spending money, and they did it in the name of healthcare. And how it turned out is that inmates actually have, and to this day, they have better healthcare than the average citizen, particularly if you're, lower income. If you're a veteran who relies on, my father was a veteran and he relied on the veteran healthcare, and I can tell you 100% that inmates get way better healthcare. I just read that in California, that one particular transgender inmate is getting a breast augmentation paid for by taxpayers of California. And to me, that should never happen. It should never happen. But it is, and that's liberal California for you. Getting a little bit off track, but I thought worthy of mentioning it. So we're going to talk about numbers and what they should be, where they're going, and maybe some folks haven't realized the job of a correctional staff and how very dangerous it is, and the job they do on the front line. And I think there's one of the things that I'm gonna cover in the future is I don't want to let too much out about it, but I'm going to be talking about the people who oversee the department. Not oversee is a bad word. People who run the department, and how much experience they may have in prison operation. We'll leave it at that. So some of them are probably fairly well experienced. I think Mr. Macomber, I think he has, I believe he has a lot of experience. I don't really know. Like I said, I have heard good things about him. So in one sense, because, one particular friend that told me, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And so I almost hate to say anything negative about Mr. Macomber just because I know the guy likes it. But facts are facts, and we got to talk about it. So let's bring up. Okay. So what happens in the department and in a lot of larger businesses is they track, they track statistics. They want to know what's changed, what's trending, what's going on. And so ideally, you run a department, you have, and the reason, let me back up. So the reason I talked about population back in the early 90s being at 190,000, and the courts essentially forced corrections to do one of two things. Either you got to build more prisons and more medical facilities, or you got to start releasing inmates. So they kind of did, to start out, they kind of did both. They built a very big, the biggest, I worked there, I opened it up, a California healthcare facility in Stockton, California. Probably the biggest healthcare facility for the incarcerated in the world. Probably the most advanced, I have no doubt. We housed pretty much the most critical care type of inmates there. It did not end up to be what was promised. I will say that they were supposed to be able to do like minor surgeries, and there were supposed to be very limited instances where inmates actually had to go to the local emergency room because they could take care of it all there. That's complete horseshit. Okay. Well, I actually had an inmate being sent out to rule out, and this was via ambulance, glaucoma. Okay. So you got an ambulance ride from a prison to rule out glaucoma, which I've never heard to be an emergent type of situation. So what's going on is doctors are afraid to treat. They're getting sued for anything and everything. They don't want to get involved, so they just send them out. Okay, and it happens all the time. We had as many inmates going out to the local facilities there as any other, prison. Now, truthfully, there were a lot more. Excuse me. There are a lot more inmates requiring medical care there than the normal prison, because that was one of our missions. We had a mental health facility with almost, I want to say about 800 really high level, crazy inmates. Give you some of the crazy stories you ever want to hear about that. Then we had, just other portions were just people who were essentially on their deathbed, and then we of course had a yard full of just primarily normal inmates who required very little health care. But anyways, it was they tried in building it, they tried to stay under. They tried to prevent us from saying it cost $1 billion, but it did. It cost over $1 billion, and there was so much. So the medical folks were basically given carte blanche, buy whatever you want, and there was literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of medical equipment that just never got used. We ended up just essentially getting rid of it. I don't know where it ended up, but they just don't use it. It's really sad, because I think it had a lot more potential than what it ended up being. But let's get back to the population. So the population now in prison system is somewhere around 90,000, low 90s, 90,000. And it continues to go down. And the reason for it to get, now that's half of what it was when I started. Okay. So the reason for that is not because crime has gone down in California. I think we know that. The reason for that is they've shifted the housing of inmates. You can now stay in a local jail up to 3 years. It used to be 1 year. If you were sentenced to over 1 year in prison, you went, that was your lowest sentence. A year plus, you went to an actual prison. A year less, you stayed in the county jail. Now it's 3 years. A big burden was shifted from, the state prisons to the local county jails. The other thing that was really, really significant is that they really changed sentencing laws. They changed actual crimes from from felonies to misdemeanors. They changed the sentences from many, many, many crimes to very reduced amounts of time in prison. So the crime is still there, just people aren't spending the time in prison that they used to, which ultimately made the obviously the population go down quite a bit. So what you would expect with a reduced population, and it's been around 90-ish thousand for about 4 years, and it may be longer than that. I look back 4 years. I believe, I don't know how long Macomber's been in the secretary, but I think it's been about 3-4 years. So I thought that, sorry, this is a good cigar. I thought that giving a snapshot of about 4 years would be fair. If you can't improve your statistics in 4 years, maybe you're not that guy. Okay. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a reason for it. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But so I guess let's get into it. I've got them up on my screen. Y'all probably can't can't see it, but I'm gonna kind of read them out here. I got it in front of me. So we'll talk about in 2000. Now this is a snapshot of what it is a COMPSTAT report, and they have just they gathered data from prison operation all over the state, and they put it in what's called a COMPSTAT report, and then it's public. They make it public record, so anybody can access public record. I just happen to know a little bit about how to read them, and I was an associate warden and very involved in the input of data into the COMPSTAT report, so I'm fairly familiar with with what goes on in creating it. So the snapshot is from 2021 to 2022, June of 2021 to through June of 2022, and then also we've got a snapshot of June 2024 through June 2025. Now the difference in population there is somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 inmates fewer from 2022 to 2025. And so with time going on at a lower population, your, I guess, vision for the department and how to make it better should have plenty of time to have been implemented and to show the fruits of your labor, essentially, and not necessarily Mr. Macomber's labor, but the folks who work the line in the prisons in California, because they're the ones who are actually doing it. So let's start off with just the numbers of batteries on staff with on an officer with a weapon. So in the 2023, we had a total of 103. Now this is with a weapon, so this is serious. All right, we had a total of 103 in the 2025 report, and this is the same snapshot, same amount of months, just 3 years later. We had a total of 183. So 103, 183. I guess that's fairly close to double. 80 went up 80%. Now, on a non-prisoners, so this is non-peace officer staff, it was 17 and 22 in 2022, those months that I told you, and then it was 25. So again, it went up a little bit. Officers, now here is, it's going to get a little crazy. So battery on an officer without a weapon. Okay. So the number in 2023 is 1,494 instances of battery on a peace officer without a weapon. All right. That's quite a few, man. I mean, 15, basically 1,500 batteries on a peace officer without a weapon during the course of a year. But not to be outdone, by 2025, it ended up being 3,033. Okay, so double the amount of batteries on peace officers without a weapon. Okay, over double actually. Then we'll go with aggravated batteries. Okay, so aggravated battery is where there was a significant injury or something that brought it to a higher level of a higher threshold to increase the penalty. Most of the time that's going to be there's going to be an injury to this staff member, and like a visible injury, something more serious, not just a bump or bruise or what have you. So in 2022, for that period of time, there was 245 of those aggravated batteries on peace officer. Okay. Now this is in addition to the other the other charges. So there's battery, and then there's aggravated battery. So you can add to the 1400 to the basically 1500 number, add 245 of aggravated. And in 2025, 436 aggravated batteries on peace officers. Okay, 436. That's almost double what it was in the 2023. 2022. So that's another significant jump in the amount of aggravated batteries on peace officers. We're not done. Okay, then we're going to jump down to batteries on inmates with a weapon. Okay, so in 2022, there was, I put two categories together. Because with a weapon, you can kind of, I guess you can expect a serious injury, but, but maybe not. It's just with a weapon and they, didn't get hurt or whatever. But in 2022, I added them both together. Okay. So, and the numbers with serious injury were kind of on the lower end anyway. So it ended up being it ended up being 362 batteries on an inmate with a weapon in 2022. Okay. And then that was combined with the causing serious bodily injury. Okay. So now I didn't add the two together, but I can tell you that we're with in 2025, but I can tell you the number is 633 batteries on an inmate with a weapon. And off the top of my head, I'm looking at the numbers. You could probably add 30 to 40. It's probably more close to 50 with serious bodily injury. Now we haven't got to the murders yet and all that stuff. But if you could see a trend here, is the violence is significantly growing. Okay, significantly. And so what's going on? I mean, why is that happening? Okay, somebody needs to ask that question or answer that question. I communicate with CDCR Communications, Mrs. Hardy, and I email her about, lately it's been about once a week. Sometimes she refuses to, she always refuses to really answer the question. Then at other times she gets a little snarky. But she doesn't have, what I've determined is she doesn't have really a good grasp of the English language, because I'll ask a very specific question and then she'll turn it into an allegation of some sort that is that's not consistent with what happened. And, I don't know. It's almost like I'm dealing with inmate mentality here. But I try to break it down to her. I just think she maybe not the best person for that position. I tried to create a good rapport, initially, but she kind of started off kind of snarky. I get the idea that, and this is my history with CDCR headquarters, is they get up there and they're above everyone else, and that's the persona they give off, with very few folks who don't do that. Some don't. I'm telling you. The friend I had that I'm not going to mention his name, but the friend I had that spoke highly of Mr. Macomber, he'd be one of those. I mean, just as down to earth as you'd ever want to get. Love the guy to death, respect him with, all that I have. And I wish that he could have stuck around longer and eventually ran this department, CDCR, because I think he would have really changed things up. But I say that he still would have been working for Newsom, and maybe that's why he chose not to. You can't. You can only do what your boss is going to allow you to do, and I don't think. And maybe that's part of Mr. Macomber's issue too. And I wouldn't doubt that. But at some point you have to, what is your legacy going to be? And maybe that's not important to Mr. Macomber. I don't know. But so far it's not great. You've got this mess of a California model that's already failed. You've got violence. I mean, recently they locked down all the level 3s and 4s because there was too much violence. And right when they opened them back up, I mean, you got murders happening, and I mean, nothing's changed. So why aren't they locked down again? I mean, at some point, good old, custody ideology has to, make sense. You have to do what you have to do. And if you can't let these individuals out of their cells, sorry guys, but I'm drinking and I'm talking and I'm smoking, and that's what I do. If you can't let them out without them coming out and killing people or attacking staff or what have you, well, then, I'm not saying that you have to keep them all locked down 100% of the time. There's so many ways short of that to deal with them. And example, like at Calipatria, I started at Calipatria State Prison in 93, and it was the most violent prison in California at the time. And anybody who was around then will tell you, it's like, man, good luck to you. And that's what they actually did. When I was in the academy in 1993, they asked if anyone was going to Calipatria State Prison. And I think there was a couple of us, and, raised their hand. And that's what they did. They gave me the cross and they said, good luck to you. Because it is, and I was like, what the hell am I getting into? So, and I found out real quick. I mean, my first day on the job was very first day was a bloody nightmare of a welcome to CDC situation, but I'm glad I went there. I'm glad, because I learned so much so quick, and it helped me throughout the rest of my career. But let's get on to some other numbers. We've got attempt homicide of a peace officer. Okay, attempted homicide of a peace officer. That's pretty serious shit. Okay, how many people go to work and worry about just being killed? Just being killed and but intentionally by another human being. Most people, they don't have to worry about that. Obviously, law enforcement, it's a different situation, but in prison, very few people actually have a weapon. And at level 3s and 4s, there's gun coverage. At least there should be. I will tell you, at CHCF, the prison I came from, we had level 3s and 4s, and there was no gun coverage. The ability was there, but there was no gun coverage. And, thankfully we didn't necessarily need it. At any time I was there, there wasn't an incident. I mean, there was some very serious incidents, but, we got away without such a serious incident that I felt like, okay, we need a gun up there. You know, but anyways, attempted homicide of a peace officer in 2023, we had 13. Okay. In 2025, so this is right up till July 1st of this year. Okay. The year previous to that date, we had 13 and 22. We had 35. Okay. 35 in 2025. Okay. And on non-prisoners, that means staff who are not law enforcement. In 22, there was 4, and we actually went down. There was 3. And so you can up those numbers. So in 22, there was 17 total, and in 2025, there was 38 total attempted homicides of staff working in prison. Because when you walk in that prison, there's no difference between, well, there is a difference between me and a teacher, or me and the librarian, or the guy who works canteen or whatever. We're all in there. We're all inside the prison. Granted, I've got pepper spray and a baton. I get it. But when it comes time to fight, and there's a riot, or you're getting attacked or whatever, everybody has the potential of being involved in that, so it could be that librarian or that teacher that pulls an inmate off of me who's beating the hell out of me. Okay, it very well could be. So we're all on the same team. Okay, the locksmith. Okay, I mean, it doesn't matter. We are all, when we walk through that gate, man, it's all of us, because we all could be victims of an attack. Attempted suicide of it. I had to read that. I was surprised that, or not suicide, attempted homicide of an inmate. Okay, so now get attempted murder. Okay, attempted murders. In 2022, the number was 138. 138 attempted murders. In prison. Okay, 2022. 3 years later, we've got 254 attempted murders of inmates in prison. Okay. That's not trending in an acceptable way. All right. It's just not fucking trending in an acceptable way. And now I'm going to get to the big one, homicides. How many people were murdered? How many inmates were murdered? We know that this year we had the very unfortunate murder of a parole agent. And of course, I'm not including that in anything. I'm just mentioning it because, one of our brothers was murdered in the line of duty. And that's not part of this, but I wanted to mention it. But this is inmates. All right. This is inmates. This is not staff. So in 2022, we had a total of 16 murders in CDCR. In 2025, for the preceding 12-month period of time, we had 33. So it's doubled. Pretty consistent with all the rest of the numbers. They're almost doubled in every important category. So I'm going to ask you, if you are sitting in front of your boss, if you're sitting in front of your boss and your boss brings out essentially the stats on your work that you have done over the previous few years, and in in every category that essentially means that something is seriously wrong. In every one of those categories, you have doubled in the wrong direction. Okay. What's going to happen, man? I mean, what's going to happen? So let's talk about real quick, and y'all know about it, or maybe you don't. Why? Okay. Now, the California model is, and we've talked about it before on the podcast. The California model was based on a Norway model, so to speak, of running prisons, and it's basically create a college campus type of society. And CDCR will. These are their words, not mine. That's what they'll tell you on their webpage. And they'll talk about the benefits that they saw in doing business that way in prison operation. Okay. Well, I'm telling you, you fucked up. Okay. You fucked up. Inmates in California, particularly, and in other states as well. But when you spend your life committing crimes, and when you make your money from selling dope, from prostitution, from trafficking people, to murder for hire, to, it doesn't matter, when that's your deal, that's your gig, that's how you make money, that's what you do to further the benefit, your gang mentality and your gang's livelihood, you ain't gonna change. Okay, you ain't gonna change. They don't have that shit in Norway. I think Norway's prison population was about 9,000. Okay, remember what I told you? We're at 90, so 10 times. Even now, now 30 years ago it was, double that again. So you can't be so naive to think that you can, you could treat the inmates in California, the gang issues we have, the types of issues that we have going on, the same way as they would be treated in Norway. I don't know about the racial breakdown of Norway prisons, but there's another aspect to it. You just can't do it. And if you are so naive that you think you can, because I'm sure that nobody, well, I'm not sure. I'm sure that people told Gavin Newsom, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea, boss. Yeah, that's a great fucking idea. Oh man, you're a genius. If only somebody would have thought about that." Come fucking on. Okay. Jeff, you were in the position of telling Gavin, "Bro, this ain't gonna work, my man," and explaining why. Okay. Maybe you did that. I don't know. Okay. Maybe Gavin said, "Well, I want to try it anyway. And if it don't work, it's on me." Okay. Well, it ain't on. I mean, it's on Gavin, but it's on you. Those bodies, the body count is yours, Jeff. All right. Unfortunately, it's yours. So, I don't know. But I do know those numbers are not worthy of keeping your job. Okay. And maybe shit's going to change now. Maybe Gavin said, "Hey, if my shit don't work, then you go." Okay. I don't think so. Okay. There are so many ways of running prisons where they're still getting their opportunity to be out of cell. They're still getting their health care. They're still getting all the things that you're constitutionally required to provide inmate. I'm not talking about, making inmates a secure lockdown facility. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. There's a lot of in between shit, and I started going to it a little bit ago when I was at Calipatria State Prison. We had a lot of stabbings. Okay, a lot of attempted murders, a lot of attacks of staff. And when they started Calipatria, because the liberal mind is not new, it's old. Okay, when they started Calipatria State Prison, they wanted it to be a programmable level 4. Okay, there is no such a fucking thing. Okay, when programmable level 4. So what that means is that these level 4 inmates who are such a problem, you're going to transfer these people here. And mind you, that we're getting all the pieces of shit from all over the state, all the youngsters who won't program. There was no real criteria that sent good inmates to Calipatria State Prison to this programmable level 4. Okay. All they did was they said, hey, we're going to make it this way. Okay. So when these guys got there, they just told them, hey, we're good. You guys need to behave, and then we'll allow you a little bit more, I guess, freedom, so to speak. So how they started was, if y'all have never been in prison, I'll tell you now, when you work at these higher level facilities, when you get, for instance, released for chow, you release, a tier at a time. They have to walk in a single file line from their unit to the chow hall. Single file line into the chow hall. They pick up their tray. They go to a table. They fill up every chair that's open, and they are seated. They eat their meal. Then we release them. We release them by row. They get up, they walk out, they form another single file line, and they walk in a single file line back to their unit, where they are then put back into their cell. That's how it fucking works. Okay. But no, at Calipatria, they thought, okay, well, we're just gonna basically bust them out. Okay. And they could just walk over in a big fucking group. Okay. Well, guess what happened and how long that fucking lasted? Okay. Bodies were dropping on the way to chow hall. Okay. Stabbings. I mean, crazy shit. So I mean, almost immediately they were like, no, this ain't gonna fucking work. Okay. So we got single file lines again. All right. You don't get to just walk in and take up whatever seat in the chow hall, because that creates fucking problems. Okay. And these people, you think that inmates want that freedom. I'm telling you, they don't. Okay. They don't fucking want it. Okay. They want you to do your fucking job, and they want you to tell them to be in a single file line, because that's what's fucking safe. Okay. That's safe. All right. They want you to tell them where to sit and when to get up. You know why? Because that is what is fucking safe. They know they're in a dangerous situation in prison, and they expect us to be doing our fucking job. Okay. And that's keeping them safe. All right. And sometimes keeping them safe means you got to tell them when to get up, when to sit down, and walk in a single file line. All right. So do it. All right. Do it. Okay. Because not doing it creates an unsafe environment. And you know it, but you want to give it to people who don't fucking want it. Okay. They want to be safe. All right. That's what they want. The people who don't want you to do the job are the people who are going to take advantage of the missteps that you take when you tell people to give them more of that freedom that they lost when they came to prison. They're going to take advantage of it, and people die. People get hurt. Okay. People get raped, people get attacked, people get all of the above. Okay. So run a prison like a fucking prison, not your California model. Okay, Gavin? That's the answer, man. That's the answer. And of course, you're going to have people who complain. Okay. But you can demonstrate the penological interest in running the facility in a safe manner and the way you do that. You know you can't. Nobody is really trying to run. I mean, of course, there's always lawsuits because there's money to be made. Okay, there's money to be made. Lawyers are going to sue you for whatever they can sue you for because there's money to be made. But your job is to keep things safe. All right, and you're just not fucking doing it. Nothing says that there's requirements that you have to allow inmates out for yard, and I'm not saying take that away. What I'm saying is you got to control it better. Okay, you got to control it better. You got to control movement. You got to control when they're out on the facility. You got to do better. Okay, it's not that hard. It's really not, and that's what happened at Calipatria State Prison. Is when they tried to allow them that more freedom, it bit them in the ass. Okay. People got hurt. And I'm talking staff. Okay. I'm talking staff and I'm talking inmates. All right. I don't advocate for, you know, I don't want inmates to be hurt. I don't want that. Okay. What I want is the people working in those prisons to be safe. And you need, Gavin and Jeff, you need to create policy that allows them to do their job in such a way that they can be safe. Okay. It's pretty fucking simple, guy. All right. It's pretty fucking simple. But for some reason, it's not. And that's why your numbers are what they are. That's why more people are being murdered. All right. And I get the fact that you know, you're getting sued. You got all these people in the shoes, and you had to release them, and you know, and some shit was going to happen there. You know, you start letting these guys who were long term, you know, guys in shoe out. You start, and what was okay? I got to cover this a little bit, man. I thought I was almost done, but when you start creating protective custody. Okay, what they call it is sensitive needs yard. I think it's the same now. I don't fucking know, but I retired 5 years ago, or just less than 5 years ago. And previous to that, they created what's called sensitive needs yard. So what that means is that an inmate who, let's say, is a gang dropout. He's a Mexican mafia, and he's tired, and he's, you know, maybe he's on the hit list. Maybe he didn't do a hit that he was supposed to do. Maybe owes drug money, or well, it doesn't matter. He wants out. So he's got to debrief, meaning he's got to tell everything he knows about the Mexican mafia and who jumped him in, you know, blah, 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 all this bullshit. He's got to let it all out. And then y'all are going to put him on what's called a sensitive needs yard. And other people like him are on those facilities. Same place that you put child molesters, same place. Anybody who has enemies that there's really nowhere else for them to go, that's where they end up. Sensitive needs yard. It's basically PC, protective custody yard. Okay. Now, somebody made the decision that, and I just heard this the other day, is like, you are just going to force these people. Now, so what happened there is you didn't really have a criteria for being placed on, and I know this because I lived this. Okay. There was no real criteria for being placed on a sensitive needs yard. So anybody who come in and say, hey, I got enemies, I had a drug debt at, you know, Calipat or whatever, they say they're after me, they're going to kill me, blah, 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 I need to go SNY. Okay, you know, have a nice day, you'll be transferred to whatever, you know, the same. It's it was almost that easy, especially to start out with. All right. It created a real housing problem for corrections because now you've got inmate, this subset of inmates who can no longer be housed with any other inmates who are in like a general population situation. So as that population grows, it's almost like you have two different prisons because now you have SNY inmates who require the same type of care, let's say, medical care or mental health care or whatever their deal is. You can no longer house them with the general population inmates who need the same type of care. And what I'm getting at is you'll have the missions for a prison. And maybe their mission is mental health or a certain, type of medical treatment or whatever. Well, now you got to have two. Okay, now you got to have two because you created this SNY monster that prevents you from putting two inmates with the same medical issue at the same prison because one's GP and one's SNY. All right, so that was created because they came up with this fantastic SNY idea, but they never really enforced or created a criteria that allowed them to go SNY. All right. So to get to where I was going, somebody came up with the idea, okay, now SNY just kind of goes away. Okay. We're going to house them together. Now, let me tell you how serious SNY was. If you are a GP inmate and you're a gangster, okay, yeah, and most of them are, especially when you're, level 3, level 4, okay, and you see an inmate that you know to be SNY, and they all know each other because they'll be from the same neighborhood or whatever. Hey, did you hear Spooky went SNY? Yeah, blah blah blah. So yes, he's fucking smash on sight, man. He's done. So green light on anybody SNY is you have to attack them. Okay, you have to. It's your obligation. If you are in a situation where you see an SNY inmate and they have the ability, if you do not attack them, then you are the next target. Okay, that's the way it works. Okay. So now somebody up in the palace decides we're just going to put these guys together now because that's just how we're going to do it. And they're just going to have to fight it out. Okay. Your numbers go up, Jeff. Your numbers go up. Okay. That wasn't a good fucking idea. Okay. You fucked yourself with creating the SNY. And understand you aren't in charge of that. And that wasn't your fault. But you got to come up with something better than, well, fuck them. Just put them in the same. I mean, isn't that essentially what we were sued for in putting two inmates we knew we were going to fight, out on the yard together? Wasn't that the gladiator fights and shit? That's basically what headquarters is doing in creating these types of scenarios where you put two or you put multiple inmates who were SNY onto the same facility, same institution, facility, whatever, that GPs are at. Okay, because they're obligated to attack them. You were former you were SNY. You're SNY. You're SNY for life. Okay, it's their job to attack them. All right. So your numbers go up, Jeff. Okay, so that's policy you created that created these fucking numbers. All right, how many people died? Because I don't know. Maybe there's none. Maybe half of them. I mean, I have no idea because of policy created by CDCR headquarters. Okay, so you have some culpability there. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I know your numbers are shit. I know you got some work to do. I know you're probably hampered by, your boss, and he wants shit done his way and the California model and all that. All that shit's supposed to be gone. I mean, it'll never really be gone. The ideology will remain. The actual program itself, because recently they've came up with they're not going to fund it anymore. So they're not going to spend any more money on it. The ideology remains the same. The same idiots who want to call inmates clients, those same idiots still run the department. Okay. Their failed policies, like the California model, are not failed in their minds. Okay. They just have to attack it another way. They're still going to push for shit that's going to get people hurt. All right. That's what they do, man. They're not smart. And so many of these people in leadership positions they really just don't have the mindset of an experienced prison person. Okay. They just don't. I don't want to say it's necessarily politics. It's just the whole ideology of safety and security of the prison and the public has gone, and now they're doing something else. And I have no idea what it is, what you're thinking. All right. But I do know that there's a lot of leadership in the department that just shouldn't be in those leadership roles. And we're going to talk about that in future podcasts. That's what I got for you today. I hope that the numbers shocked you, because they shocked me. Jeff, you got to do better, brother. You got to do better. I don't know what else to say, man. You can't double your murders and say you're doing a great job. You can't double your attacks on staff and say you're doing a great job. Okay. Cause you're not. All right. It's your policies and it's your people. Okay. That create these problems. Do better. Okay. Just do better. Okay. Surround yourself with smart people. They're out there. Okay. But you got to get away from the friends and family plan. Okay. You got to get away from that, bro. You got to reach out. There's some great dudes and great ladies and I don't want to get gender specific. There are both some of the best people, because there's more than one. Were female that I work for in prisons. So they're out there, but you got to get away from, allowing these friends to be hired. And it's just a train wreck, because they just don't know what they're doing. All right. They don't. Anyways, not that you'll listen to me, but, maybe you'll listen to a little bit of it. I don't know, but that's what I got for you today. Red, White, and Ruthless. We are going to play my theme song. I got a new theme song. Check it out on Facebook. CDCR motivated me, man. CDCR motivated me. In starting this podcast, I was going to be, I was going to tell prison stories. Okay. Because I didn't want to be overly critical of my former employer. Even though there's a lot to be critical about, I just really didn't want to do it. I didn't want to seem like I'm like negative or, that I leave on bad terms or whatever. I had a great career and I enjoyed it. But it kind of pissed me off, man, because I'm trying to just get some information and do a couple stories on this and that. And they're so flippant and so obnoxious. And to me, if you worked in prison as long as I have, there's two things that are important to me anyways. Okay. Respect and loyalty. I've earned the respect. Okay. 28 years working the line. And when I contact headquarters, this thing up in headquarters wants to essentially blow me off and shit and give me some bullshit answer that I know is bullshit. Okay, you got my attention then. Okay, you got my attention. Okay, so now I'm going to start calling you out on some of your bullshit. All right. So that's where I'm going. I'm transitioning into some more CDCR shit. I want to tell your stories. I want to dissect them, and I want to ram them right up CDCR's ass. Okay, that's where I want to go. All right, that's where I want to go with this, and I'm still going to have a lot of political shit because I'm very interested in that aspect. But you know what? That's what we're going to do here, and we're going to play our way out of it. And I'm going to stop my rant for today, and y'all have a blessed rest of your day.
There's only one, and you can have some.